Chosen one, listen carefully. She had the plan ready before she even walked into that room. Every sentence rehearsed, every reaction predicted, every version of you already scripted in her head. Weak, apologetic, easy to break. And none of it survived the second your eyes actually met hers. Chosen one, let's talk about what really happened that day, because what she walked in expecting and what she walked out with were two completely different stories. She spent time on this, real time, choosing the words, choosing the moment, choosing the room full of people who would watch it happen. She wanted witnesses. She wanted an audience for your unraveling. That's how sure she was. That's how long she'd been carrying this plan around like a weapon she couldn't wait to use. And you didn't know any of it. You walked in the same way you walk into everything now. Calm, steady, unaware that you were the target of a plan built entirely around the idea that you'd still flinch at her voice. She was counting on the old version of you, the one who used to shrink, the one who used to explain herself, the one who used to need her approval to feel okay. She built her entire script around a person who doesn't exist anymore, and she had no idea. Then your eyes met. 1 second. That's all it took. And whatever she had rehearsed 100 times in the mirror, whatever line she'd practiced in the car, whatever performance she'd prepared for the people watching, it died right there in her throat. Not because you said anything, not because you moved, because you looked at her the way someone looks at weather that's already passed. Before we go further, hit like and subscribe. Not as a favor, as a signal. A way of telling the universe you're paying attention to what happens when someone finally stops flinching. This isn't just a story. This is a pattern, and you're about to see exactly how it works, step by step, from the moment she started planning to the moment she realized none of it mattered anymore. Here's what nobody explains about moments like that one. A plan built on someone else's fear only works as long as the fear is still there. The second it's gone, the whole thing collapses in real time, in front of everyone, with nowhere to hide. That's what happened to her. And chosen one, that's exactly what we're about to break down, piece by piece, chapter by chapter, so you understand precisely why one look undid months of scheming and why she still hasn't recovered from it. Think about how rare that is. Most people who plan something like this get at least a partial version of what they wanted. A flinch, a raised voice, a single tear they can point to later and say, "See, I got to them." She didn't get any of that. She got nothing. And nothing, chosen one, is the one outcome a plan like hers is never built to survive. Because a plan is a machine designed to produce a reaction, and a machine with no output isn't a plan anymore. It's just evidence of how much time someone spent preparing for a war that had already ended without them noticing. This is bigger than one moment in one room. This is a pattern that repeats itself everywhere. In every corner of your life where someone still believes they hold a key to a door, you quietly change the locks on. And once you understand exactly how this pattern works, you'll start noticing it everywhere. In every interaction where someone tries to reach for a version of you that simply isn't there to grab onto anymore. Number 1. The plan she rehearsed 100 times. She didn't wake up that morning and decide on impulse. This wasn't heat of the moment, this was choreography. She picked the day, she picked the room, she picked the people who would be standing close enough to hear every word land. She thought about the opening line for days, maybe weeks, testing it in her head until it felt sharp enough to cut. She thought about your face when she said it. She thought about the silence that would follow, the kind she imagined would prove she'd finally won something. That's the part people don't talk about when they picture revenge or exposure, or whatever she thought this was. It's rarely spontaneous. It's usually slow, deliberate, and lonely. She spent real hours of her life constructing a version of a conversation that hadn't happened yet, casting you in a role you never agreed to play. Weak, desperate, caught off guard. She needed you to be small so the moment would feel big. Think about that for a second. Someone spending weeks preparing to hurt a person who, by that point, had already moved past needing anything from her. That's not power. That's obsession dressed up as confidence. Real power doesn't need preparation, because real power isn't afraid of how the other person will react. It doesn't have to script the ending, because it isn't scared of losing control of the room. Imagine a general drawing up battle plans for a war the other side already walked away from months ago. Imagine spending nights studying a map of a country that no longer exists. That's what she was doing, chosen one, fighting a war against a version of you that had already surrendered its old fears, its old need for her, its old habit of shrinking. She just hadn't gotten the memo. I know exactly what I'm going to say to them. She probably told someone close to her more than once in the weeks before. They won't see it coming. That line alone tells you everything. People don't say that about someone who doesn't matter to them. People say that about someone they've been unable to stop thinking about. Someone whose silence has been living rent-free in their head far longer than they'd ever admit. She rehearsed because she was scared. Somewhere underneath the plan was a quiet fear that if she didn't control every variable, if she didn't set the stage exactly right, the moment might not go her way. And that fear is the whole story, chosen one. People don't over-prepare to destroy someone they truly believe is beneath them. You don't build an entire performance around someone who doesn't matter. The amount of energy she put into this proves something she'll never admit out loud. You were never irrelevant to her. You were the whole reason she couldn't move on. So when you hear that she had it all planned, don't picture strength. Picture someone circling a moment for weeks because she needed it to go a certain way, to feel okay about herself. Picture someone rehearsing lines to a person who had already stopped needing her approval, months before she ever opened her mouth. That gap between what she thought she was walking into and what was actually waiting for her, that gap is where this whole story lives, and it's about to get wider. Number 2. The version of you she built in her head. To do what she was planning, she needed you to be someone specific, not who you actually are. Who she needed you to be so the plan would make sense to her. She needed you fragile, still hurt, still hungry for her attention, still living in the version of the relationship where her words could move you. She needed the old you, the one who used to wait for her to be nice, the one who used to apologize first, even when she was wrong. That version of you was easier to hate. It was easier to justify hurting. If you were still that person, still soft, still reachable, then what she was planning didn't feel cruel to her. It felt deserved, corrective, even righteous in her own head. People rarely attack someone they see clearly. They attack a caricature they've built, specifically, so the attack feels fair. Here's the part that should sit with you. She never updated that picture while you were changing, setting boundaries, building a life that didn't orbit her anymore. She was still narrating a story about a person frozen in an old timeline. She talked about you like you hadn't moved. She planned around a you that stopped existing a long time before she ever set foot in that room. Imagine someone keeping an old photograph of you, folded in their pocket for years, taking it out whenever they needed a reason to feel superior, never once noticing that the person in the picture had grown up and walked away a long time ago. Imagine them showing that photograph to other people, saying, "This is who they really are," while you were 3 versions of yourself removed from that frame. That's what she was carrying into that room, a photograph, not a person. She probably said things like, "You know how they get, they'll fall apart the second I bring it up," to whoever she recruited as her audience. Confident, certain, building anticipation for a reaction that belonged to someone else entirely. And every time she said it, she was rehearsing against a ghost, not against you. That's why the moment broke so fast. It's not that you did anything dramatic, it's that the real you showed up instead of the character she'd been rehearsing against. Imagine spending weeks preparing for a fight against a version of someone that only lives in your memory, and then the actual person walks in, steady, unaffected, nothing like the picture in your head. That mismatch alone is enough to derail anyone. She wasn't ready for you because she was never actually looking at you. She was looking at a story she told herself so the plan would feel justified. And stories like that always collapse the moment they meet reality face to face. That's not luck. That's what happens every time someone tries to destroy a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. She built her whole case against a defendant who'd already left the building. Number 3. The room she walked into sure of herself. Picture it. She walks in with her shoulders set, her face already arranged into the expression she practiced, that mix of pity and superiority people wear when they think they're about to teach someone a lesson. She scans the room quickly, checking who's there, who's watching, who matters enough to witness this. Everything about her posture says she's already won. In her mind, the ending is written. She's just here to perform it. And for the first few seconds, it goes exactly like she imagined. People notice her. The air shifts a little, the way it does when someone walks in carrying tension they haven't released yet. She probably felt that shift and mistook it for momentum. She probably thought, this is it. This is the moment I've been building toward. What she didn't account for was you. Not loud, not defensive, not scanning the room nervously the way she expected. Just present, steady, the same energy you'd bring to any ordinary afternoon, because to you, this wasn't the main event she'd built it up to be in her head. You weren't bracing for impact because you didn't know an impact was coming, and even if you had, the version of you standing there wasn't the one who used to brace for her anymore. Imagine walking into an arena you've spent months preparing to fight in, expecting an opponent who trained just as hard to survive you, and instead finding someone sitting there reading quietly, not even aware a fight had been scheduled. That mismatch alone changes the entire temperature of the room. You can't perform a takedown against someone who never signed up to be taken down. That contrast is loud, even when nobody says a word. Someone walking in, rehearsed and tense, next to someone standing there unaffected, creates a kind of silence that has weight to it. People in the room felt it before anyone spoke. The energy she expected to control was already slipping out of her hands, and she hadn't even said her first line yet. Somebody in that room probably thought, without saying it out loud, why does she look more nervous than they do? That question, unspoken, sitting quietly in someone's mind while she opened her mouth, that question was the first crack in the plan, and it happened before a single word left her lips. This is the part that matters, chosen one. She was sure of herself because she'd only ever tested the plan against a memory. Against your calm, standing right there in real time, that confidence didn't have anywhere to land. It was built for a different room, a different version of the story, and the second she stepped into the real one, the ground under her feet was already shifting. Number 4. The second everything changed. Here it is, the moment the whole video is named after. Your eyes met hers. 1 second, maybe 2. Nothing dramatic happened. No gasp, no dramatic pause, no movie soundtrack swelling in the background. Just a look. And somewhere behind her eyes, something she had built for weeks, quietly folded in on itself. Think about what she was expecting to see. Fear, maybe. Guilt. The flicker of the old you that used to look away first, that used to soften the moment things got tense, that used to reach for her approval even in the middle of conflict. That's the reaction her plan was built to provoke. That's the reaction she needed in order for the next line, the one she'd rehearsed so carefully, to actually land. Instead, she saw someone who wasn't performing anything. No flinch, no plea, no old hunger for her validation sitting behind your expression. Just steadiness. And steadiness is the one thing a rehearsed plan cannot survive, because a plan built on provoking a reaction has nothing to work with when the reaction never comes. Imagine throwing a punch you've been winding up for weeks and hitting nothing but air. The force doesn't land anywhere. It just turns back on the person who threw it. Imagine pulling the string of a bow you've spent months tightening, aiming carefully at a target, only to release the arrow and watch it sail through empty space because the target quietly stepped aside a long time ago. That's what happened in that second. Whatever she'd loaded into that look, whatever she needed you to feel, it hit a version of you that simply wasn't carrying that weight anymore, and it had nowhere to go but back into her. There's an old saying that fits here better than anything else could: still waters run deep. She expected a surface she could disturb. What she got was depth she couldn't reach, calm she couldn't crack, a stillness that absorbed everything she aimed at it, instead of reacting to it. That's why the line died. That's why the room went strange. That's why, chosen one, 1 second undid weeks of preparation. Not because you did something powerful, because you did nothing at all, and nothing was the one outcome she never planned for. You didn't defend yourself. You didn't need to. The silence did the defending for you, and it did it better than any argument ever could. Number 5. What her body did before her mind caught up. Here's something worth sitting with. The break happened in her body before it ever reached her thoughts. You could probably see it if you were paying attention. A shoulder that dropped half an inch. A breath that caught somewhere it shouldn't have. A hand that reached for a gesture that never finished. These aren't things people choose. These are the places where the truth leaks out before the performance can catch up and cover it. She had a whole script loaded and ready, but scripts live in the front of the mind, and what happened in that second happened somewhere underneath it. Her body recognized something her ego hadn't processed yet, that the target of this plan wasn't standing there anymore, that whoever she'd built this moment for had already left a long time ago. That's the part people underestimate about confrontations like this. You can rehearse words for weeks, but you cannot rehearse your nervous system's response to being met by calm it didn't expect. The stammer, the pause, the sentence that started strong and lost its footing halfway through, all of that came from a place deeper than preparation. It came from recognition. Some part of her clocked the shift before she was ready to admit it out loud. Picture someone walking confidently toward a door they've opened 1,000 times, and this time it doesn't move the way it used to. The hesitation isn't dramatic, it's small. A half step of confusion before the brain catches up and tries to explain it away. Picture an actor stepping onto a stage they've rehearsed for weeks, only to realize mid-scene that the other actor changed their entire role without telling anyone, and now every line feels wrong the second it leaves their mouth. That's exactly what that pause looked like. Small, almost invisible to anyone not watching closely, but real. And once you've seen a moment like that, you don't forget it. Somewhere in her head, a quiet voice was probably asking, "Why isn't this working the way it's supposed to?" That question doesn't get answered in the moment. It gets buried, pushed down, dismissed as nerves or bad timing. But it doesn't disappear, it just waits. You didn't cause that reaction on purpose. You didn't perform anything to trigger it. You simply weren't who she needed you to be anymore, and her own body told on her before her mind found a way to hide it. Before we go further, if you're feeling this story land somewhere familiar, drop 77 in the comments. Not for luck. As a marker, a way of saying you know exactly what it feels like to watch someone's plan collapse the second it meets who you've actually become. Number 6, why she couldn't say a single line she prepared. This is the part that should really sit with you, chosen one. It wasn't nerves that stopped her. It wasn't even embarrassment, not at first. It was the simple, brutal fact that every line she'd prepared depended on a premise that no longer existed. Her whole script was built on the assumption that you still needed something from her: approval, closure, an explanation, anything. And the second she looked at you and didn't find that need waiting there, The script had nothing left to stand on. Imagine building an entire argument around convincing someone of something they already stopped believing months ago. That's what she was doing. Every sentence she'd practiced was designed to break news to a version of you that had already moved past it. She was about to deliver a verdict to someone who'd already closed the case. Imagine a lawyer walking into a courtroom with a brilliant closing statement, only to discover the trial ended weeks ago and the defendant was already acquitted, already living their life somewhere else entirely. That's the position she found herself in, standing there with an entire argument nobody in that room needed to hear anymore, because the case had already been settled without her. That's why the words wouldn't come, not because she forgot them, because saying them out loud to the actual you, standing there unaffected, would have exposed exactly how outdated her entire plan was. Some part of her understood that finishing the line would only prove how far behind she was, how long she'd been fighting a version of the story that had already ended without her. People don't usually admit that in the moment. They cover it. They mumble something short, change the subject, laugh it off, walk away, and pretend the moment never mattered. That's likely what happened here too. But you were there. You saw the line die before it started. And once you've watched someone's entire plan collapse under the weight of its own outdated assumptions, you understand something important about power. It was never really hers to use. It only worked as long as you agreed to still be the person it was built to hurt. There's a version of a quote that fits here, something people say about arguments in general. You can't win a fight the other person never showed up to. She came dressed for battle. You came dressed for an ordinary day. And an ordinary day beats a battle every single time, because a battle needs two willing participants, and you had quietly stopped being one a long time before she noticed. Number 7. The audience that expected a different ending. Here's a detail worth noticing. She didn't do this alone in private. She wanted witnesses. That means other people walked into that room expecting a show too, expecting to watch you react the way she'd probably told them you would. Maybe she'd hyped it up beforehand. Maybe she'd painted you as fragile, dramatic, someone who was about to fall apart the second she said her piece. And instead, everyone got silence. Not the awkward silence she was hoping for, the kind that follows someone being humiliated. A different kind. The kind that follows an anticlimax nobody prepared for. People who came expecting a spectacle got a non-event. And in rooms like that, the absence of drama says more than drama ever could. Think about what it does to a person's credibility when the scene they promised simply doesn't happen. Imagine inviting people to a fireworks show and lighting a single match instead. The audience doesn't walk away thinking the fireworks were shy. They walk away wondering why you promised fireworks in the first place. That's exactly the position she put herself in. She sold a performance she couldn't deliver, in front of people whose opinion of her now quietly shifted. The people watching don't walk away thinking you were weak for not reacting. They walk away noticing that she was the one who seemed rattled, that she was the one who lost her footing, that whatever story she'd been telling them about you clearly didn't match what just happened in front of their eyes. That's a quiet kind of exposure, chosen one, and it's often more damaging than any confrontation could be. She didn't just lose the moment. She lost the narrative she'd been building around it. Everyone in that room now has a small piece of evidence that contradicts whatever version of you she's been selling. And stories like that travel, not because you spread them, because the people who witness the gap between the plan and the reality remember it long after the room empties out. Someone in that room may have quietly turned to someone else afterward and asked, "Wait, that's it? That's what she's been building up for weeks?" And once that question exists out loud, even softly, even between two people who only half meant it, the story she'd been constructing about you starts to unravel from the inside, without you ever having to say a single defending word. Number 8. Why her silence after said everything? After a moment like that, there's usually a retreat. No apology, no acknowledgement, just a quiet withdrawal, like nothing happened, like the whole thing was beneath her to begin with. That's a familiar pattern, and it's worth naming clearly. Silence after a failed confrontation isn't peace. It's damage control. There's an important difference here, chosen one, between your silence and hers. Yours has always come from a place of not needing to explain yourself, of already knowing what's true, and not requiring anyone else's agreement to feel settled in it. Hers, in that moment, came from somewhere else entirely. It came from needing to disappear before anyone could ask her what just happened, before anyone could point out that the plan she'd built for weeks folded in under 60 seconds. Imagine a storm that spent all night gathering strength over the ocean, dark clouds, rising wind, every sign pointing to something massive, and then it reaches the shore and simply dissipates into a light drizzle nobody bothers to grab an umbrella for. The people who braced for the storm don't remember the drizzle fondly. They remember being told to expect a hurricane and getting nothing worth mentioning. That kind of silence is loud if you know what to listen for. It's the sound of someone realizing, maybe for the first time, that the leverage she thought she had over you simply isn't there anymore. It's the sound of someone recalculating in real time, trying to figure out how to explain to herself, let alone anyone else, why the moment didn't go the way she promised it would. You don't need her to admit any of this out loud. You already have the only proof that matters. The plan existed, the plan failed, and the silence afterward wasn't dignity. It was retreat, dressed up to look like she didn't care, because admitting she did care, admitting how much time and energy she'd spent on a moment that dissolved in a single look, would have cost her more than she was willing to pay in front of an audience. Number 9. What she's been avoiding ever since that day. Here's something that tends to happen after moments like this, and it's worth paying attention to if it's happening around you. People start avoiding specific things without ever explaining why. Certain places, certain topics, certain names that used to come up in conversation without a second thought suddenly go quiet whenever you're mentioned. That avoidance is its own kind of confession. If the moment truly hadn't mattered to her, she wouldn't need to sidestep it. She could bring it up casually, laugh about it, spin it into whatever story made her look fine. Instead, there's a careful distance now, a way of talking around the day instead of through it. That's not indifference. That's someone protecting a memory she'd rather not examine too closely. Imagine someone rerouting their entire daily walk just to avoid passing one particular street corner, never explaining why, just quietly adjusting their path every single day so they never have to look at it directly. That's the kind of avoidance we're talking about. Small, practical, consistent, and utterly revealing to anyone who notices the pattern. Think about how strange that is. She was the one who built the plan. She was the one who chose the room, the people, the moment. And now, she's the one who can't seem to bring any of it up without changing the subject. That reversal tells you everything about who actually walked away from that day carrying weight. You don't need to chase down proof of this. You don't need to track her patterns or ask around about what she's been avoiding. That's not the point, and it's not where your energy belongs. The point is simply this: when someone spends that much effort avoiding a moment, it means the moment won. And it wasn't her moment to begin with. There's something almost funny about it, if you let yourself see it that way. The person who spent weeks planning to make you small is now the one rearranging her whole life around a handful of minutes she can't stand to look at directly. She's the one managing the fallout now. She's the one calculating which conversations are safe and which ones might veer too close to the memory. That's an exhausting way to live, constantly steering around a single second in time, and she built that maze herself, one avoided topic at a time. Think about how much energy avoidance actually costs a person over weeks and months. Every time your name almost comes up and she redirects the conversation, that's a small tax she pays. Every time she catches herself starting to explain what happened and stops mid-sentence, that's another one. Small taxes add up. They compound quietly in the background of someone's life, until one day they've built an entire structure just to keep one memory contained, and they don't even fully realize they've done it. You're not paying any of those taxes anymore, chosen one. She is, alone, every single day. Number 10. The friends who noticed she's not the same. People around her have likely picked up on something, even if they can't name exactly what. A shift in her energy when your name comes up. A hesitation where there used to be confidence. Maybe she used to talk about you a certain way, dismissive, sure of herself, and now there's a pause before she answers, like she's choosing her words more carefully than she used to. That kind of shift doesn't go unnoticed, chosen one. Not among people who actually pay attention. Friends notice when someone's usual bravado goes quiet around one particular subject. They notice when a person who used to have an opinion about everything suddenly changes the topic the second it gets close to you. They might not know exactly what happened in that room, but they know something did, because the person who walked in sure of herself isn't the same person who walked out. Imagine a group of friends who've watched the same person tell the same confident story 100 times, and then one day the story stops being told at all. No explanation, no closing chapter, just silence, where a familiar narrative used to live. People notice absence just as loudly as they notice presence, sometimes louder. That's the part she can't control anymore. She can manage what she says. She can't manage what people around her observe over time. The small inconsistencies, the flinch she probably didn't know she had, the way her old confidence about you simply isn't there in the same way it used to be. People read patterns even when they don't have all the details, and the pattern here is obvious to anyone watching closely enough. You don't need her friends to confirm anything to you directly. You already know what happened. But it's worth understanding that the ripple from that 1 second didn't stop with her. It moved outward, quietly, into every conversation where your name comes up, and the room gets a little more careful than it used to be. If this is landing somewhere true for you right now, consider supporting the channel with the super thanks button on your screen. It keeps stories like this one coming, and it tells us you're exactly the kind of chosen one this message was built for. Number 11. Why she still can't explain what happened. Somewhere, probably more than once, she's tried to make sense of that day to herself, tried to find the words for why the plan she was so sure about simply didn't survive contact with the real moment. And chances are, she still can't fully explain it, not in a way that doesn't require admitting something she'd rather not admit. It's easier to blame the room, easier to say the timing was off, the people watching through her, something external got in the way. Anything except the actual truth, that the plan depended entirely on you being someone you'd already stopped being, and there was no version of that plan that could survive meeting who you actually are now. People rarely sit with explanations that implicate themselves. It's far more comfortable to leave it foggy, to let the memory blur at the edges, rather than look directly at what it's actually telling her. That fog is protective. It lets her keep functioning without confronting the fact that her read on you, her whole strategy, was built on something outdated and false. Imagine someone standing in front of a mirror that shows them something they don't like, and instead of looking closer, they simply dim the lights in the room until the reflection is too blurry to make out clearly. That's what she's doing every time this memory comes up, dimming the lights instead of facing what's actually standing there. You don't need her to ever land on the real explanation. That was never your job to hand her. What matters is that you know exactly what happened, clearly, without fog, without needing to protect yourself from the truth of it. She's the one still circling the moment, trying to find a version of the story where she doesn't come out looking exactly like what she is. And every version she tries still leads back to the same place, the same second, the same look that undid everything she built. Number 12. The version of her that needed you to break. Let's go a layer deeper here, chosen one, because this is the part most people skip past too quickly. Ask yourself honestly, why does someone need another person to break in order to feel okay about themselves? That question sits underneath this entire story, and the answer isn't flattering to her at all. Somewhere along the way, her sense of herself got tangled up with how you responded to her. Your reactions used to be the mirror she checked herself in. Your hurt used to be the proof that she still mattered to you, that she still had a say in how your day went, that she was still, in some small way, running the show. When that stopped, when you stopped supplying the reaction she needed, she didn't just lose a habit. She lost a measuring stick she'd been using for a long time without ever admitting it out loud. That's why the plan existed in the first place. Not because she wanted to hurt you for the sake of hurting you, though that was certainly part of it, but because she needed to confirm, one more time, that she still had that power. Think of it like someone repeatedly checking if an old key still fits a lock they used to have full access to, needing to know, needing the reassurance, even after they were the one who walked away from that door in the first place. Imagine a musician who spent years playing to one specific audience, needing their applause to feel like the performance meant something, and then one day walking onto that same stage and finding the seats empty, not because anyone left in anger, just because the audience quietly moved on with their lives. That emptiness doesn't feel like relief to that musician. It feels like erasure, and erasure is exactly what she was trying to avoid by forcing a reaction out of you that day. She needed you to break because your calm was proof she couldn't manufacture that erasure into reversal. Every day you stayed steady was another day she had to sit with the truth that whatever leverage she once had over you had quietly expired without her permission. And people don't handle that expiration well when it happens on someone else's terms instead of their own. Number 13. Why you never had to lift a finger. Here's something worth sitting with, chosen one. Something that separates what happened to you from what usually gets called revenge or payback in stories like this one. You didn't do anything. You didn't plan a comeback. You didn't rehearse a single word. You didn't spend 1 hour thinking about how to make her feel small the way she tried to make you feel small. And that's exactly why it worked the way it did. Think about the difference between two kinds of power. One kind needs constant maintenance, constant proving, constant performance in front of an audience to feel real. The other kind just exists, quietly, without needing anyone's validation to hold its shape. She was operating from the first kind. She needed the room, the witnesses, the rehearsed lines, because without all of that scaffolding, her position didn't feel solid to her. You were operating from the second kind without even realizing it, because you'd stopped needing an audience a long time before that day ever happened. Imagine two trees standing in the same storm. One has roots that only go a few inches deep, propped up by stakes and wires someone has to keep adjusting every time the wind shifts. The other has roots that go down and out, quietly, for years, without anyone watching, without anyone applauding the process. When the storm hits, the first tree needs constant intervention just to stay upright. The second tree doesn't move much at all, and it doesn't need anyone to notice that it didn't move. You were the second tree that day, chosen one, not because you tried to be. Because somewhere along the way, without a single dramatic decision, you'd already put in the quiet years that made a moment like that survivable without effort. She spent weeks preparing an entire performance. You spent that same time simply living your life, and it turned out to be more than enough. There's a version of an old idea that fits here well. The empty vessel makes the most noise. She had to be loud, elaborate, staged, because there was nothing underneath the performance holding it up on its own. You didn't have to be any of those things, because what's underneath you didn't need decoration to be real. That contrast is the entire story, condensed into 13 words. She built a production. You just showed up as yourself. And yourself was more than enough to end it. This is worth remembering the next time you find yourself wondering whether you should have said more, done more, prepared some kind of response in case a moment like that ever comes around again. You won't need to, chosen one. Not because nothing will ever test you again, but because the thing that actually won that day wasn't a clever line or a perfect comeback. It was simply the fact that you had already done the quiet work of becoming someone a plan like that couldn't reach. Preparation for a moment like that doesn't look like rehearsing a response. It looks like living your life steadily enough, honestly enough, for long enough, that nothing rehearsed against you has anywhere left to land. That's the part worth carrying forward. Not a script, not a comeback line saved for next time. Just the same quiet, steady presence that already did the job once, without you even trying. It'll do the job again, every time, for as long as you keep choosing to actually live, instead of performing readiness for a fight. Nobody's actually going to win against you. Number 14, the truth she'll never say out loud. Here's where this lands, chosen one. Underneath all of it, the plan, the room, the audience, the silence afterward, there's one truth she will never say out loud, maybe not even to herself in the quiet hours, when there's nowhere left to hide from it. She built that entire plan because some part of her still needed you to react, still needed proof that she mattered enough to shake you, still needed evidence that the power she used to have over you hadn't disappeared completely. And when that second passed, and nothing in you moved the way she needed it to, she got her answer. Not the one she was hoping for, the real one. The one that says clearly, without a single word spoken, that whatever hold she thought she still had was gone long before she ever walked into that room. People don't build elaborate plans around someone who's genuinely irrelevant to them. They build them around the person they can't stop thinking about, the one whose calm bothers them more than any confrontation ever could. That's the truth buried under everything she planned. It was never really about proving something to you. It was about trying to prove something to herself and failing in front of the one person she needed to convince. Imagine spending weeks writing a letter you never intend to send, addressed to someone who already stopped waiting for your mail a long time ago. That's what the whole plan really was, underneath the performance. A letter she needed to deliver in person because some part of her still hoped, against everything she'd tell you to your face, that it might land the way it used to. It didn't. And now she has to live with the version of that day where it simply didn't. You didn't destroy her plan on purpose. You didn't even know there was one to destroy. You simply stood there as the person you've actually become, and that alone was enough to end something she spent weeks building. That's not luck. And it's not coincidence. That's what happens every single time someone tries to reach for a version of you that already stopped existing. The reach comes up empty, and the only thing left standing in the room is you, exactly as you are now, untouched. And maybe that's the real lesson underneath everything, chosen one. Not that she lost, not even that you won, because winning was never really the goal you were chasing that day. The lesson is quieter than that. It's the simple, almost boring truth that the version of you she was trying to hurt had already been retired a long time before she ever picked the room, the day, the audience. She was fighting a memory. You were just living your life. And a life, lived steadily enough, will always outlast a memory built to destroy it. Number 15. The version of this story she still hasn't told anyone. Here's something worth thinking about, chosen one. Somewhere out there, she's still carrying an unfinished version of that day, one she hasn't been able to tell anyone the way it actually happened. Not her closest friend. Not the people who were standing in that room with her. Not even herself. Not fully. Not in the version she lets play all the way through before she changes the channel in her own head. Think about what it takes to tell a story honestly. You have to admit the parts that make you look small. You have to say out loud, "I built a plan for weeks, and it fell apart in a single second because the other person simply wasn't scared of me anymore." That sentence alone is heavy enough that most people will do almost anything to avoid saying it, even quietly, even to themselves at 2 in the morning when there's no audience left to perform for. So instead she tells a partial version. Maybe she leaves out the silence. Maybe she skips the part where the line died in her throat. Maybe she tells it fast, glossing over the middle, landing on some vague ending that makes it sound like the day simply happened and moved on, nothing more to it. That's what people do with moments that don't fit the story they need to believe about themselves. They edit, they trim, they round the sharp edges off until the memory is small enough to carry without it cutting into anything. Imagine holding a stone in your pocket that's just a little too jagged to sit comfortably, so every few days you take it out and file down one more edge, a little at a time, until eventually it's smooth enough that you almost forget it was ever sharp at all. That's what she's doing with that day. Filing it down, rounding it off, making it small enough to live with. But here's what she can't file away no matter how many times she tells the story smaller. The actual moment already happened, exactly the way it happened, in front of exactly the people who were there. She can edit the version she tells. She can't edit the version that occurred. And somewhere, in the room where it actually happened, in the memory of everyone who watched her line die before it started, the real version is still sitting there, untouched, unedited, exactly as true as it was the second it happened. You don't need her to ever tell the real version out loud. You already lived the real version. You don't need her confession, her honesty, her admission of what actually took place. What you have is better than any of that. You have the fact of it. The plan existed. The plan failed. And no amount of retelling on her part changes what already happened in that room, in that second, when your eyes met hers and she forgot everything she came there to destroy. So let her keep circling the memory. Let her keep avoiding the street corner, the topic, the name. Let her friends keep noticing the pause that wasn't there before. None of that is your job to manage anymore. Your job, chosen one, was only ever to keep being exactly who you already became, without performing it for anyone, without needing a single witness in the room to make it true. And on that day, without trying, without planning, without saying a word, that's exactly what you did. And it was enough. It was always going to be enough. If this story found you where you needed it, like the video, subscribe for more. Drop 77 in the comments to mark that you understand exactly what a look like that can undo, and share it with someone who needs to hear that their calm was never the problem. Thanks for watching, chosen one. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.